Well, hello and welcome to This Week in Dearborn. Today we're going to have a show dedicated to one single topic because it's quite controversial, in fact. What happened is we've always had laws regulating fireworks and so on, and then the state legislature decided, I think from impetus from large retailers that wanted to sell fireworks in Michigan instead of having people go out of state. So they adopted a law that really superseded our local laws and said that people had the rights under the certain conditions to have and use larger fireworks. So I have two experts here. I have Deborah Walling, our corporation counsel, and our chief, Ron Haddad, and we're going to talk about Dearborn and fireworks today. All right, well, welcome, Deb.
Thank you, Mayor.
Since you're the corporation counsel and person responsible for ensuring that our laws are consistent with the state and federal laws and that we're doing the right things, why don't you give a little overview of the changes that came with the state, how Dearborn's policies were forced to change under the state law, and then what we did to kind of adjust that, and then we'll talk about where we are today.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I think everybody realized last year there was some pretty sweeping legislation. The state adopted the Fireworks Safety Act effective January 12th or January of 2012. And what that did was allow in Michigan for the first time people were allowed to purchase consumer fireworks, which are things that leave the ground. I think they can have up to 50 millimeters of explosives. Those were always prohibited in Michigan up to that point. But what they did was allow it during 3 days around each federal holiday, that people could now buy those, use those, and that was a big change. Dearborn adopted the changes we were supposed to allow that type of use. But still, I think people need to know that you can't do display fireworks like you see at homecoming. Those are still totally illegal. You need a permit from Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms to possess, use, or display those, and you need permission from the Dearborn City Council to have a display of that nature. Yeah, anything more than 50 milligrams of combustible material is considered a display firework, and that's totally illegal in Michigan at any time.
Oh, okay.
And under the new law, the day before, the day of, and the day after those holidays we've just talked about, consumer fireworks are allowed. But, very important, no other days in Dearborn. No other days, and if we're hearing them now, anytime before July 3rd, they're illegal.
Right. So right now, July 3rd, 4th, and 5th, they are legal under the terms we're going to talk about, because they're not unbridled legal. They're legal under certain circumstances, and then with all those other holidays, the same thing: the day before, the day of, and the day after. Right. So with that state law, then what other things did they say about when they could be used or whatever over those 3 days? I mean, did they? I think they didn't, and so they came back and at the last minute, in a late session, just before they went home for the summer, they did take an action that would give local governments some power, but too late for us to do it for this holiday.
Too late for the 4th of July. The governor just signed the law June 13th, a few days ago, that would allow local communities to ban the use of those consumer fireworks after midnight and before 8 a.m. on those 3 days surrounding the holidays. In Dearborn, our ordinance amendments required 2 readings of the council, so there was no way to get that done before the 4th of July. It will be in effect, though, I predict, by Labor Day.
Yes.
But as you mentioned, there's a lot of other regulations that go with consumer fireworks. I think number one is minors can't buy them. Anybody under the age of 18 cannot buy those. And now with respect to the use of those, their parents are still responsible to monitor not only the use of them, but where they're being used.
Well, I think that's an important thing. They cannot buy them, so no one under 18 can buy them. Can they possess and use them without supervision?
Well, the state did not address use and possession for minors, but we have parental responsibility laws that would regulate that. The state did make it a felony if you use these consumer fireworks and it injures someone,
Okay.
causes great bodily injury or death. Or in Dearborn, if you cause damage to anyone's property, you are absolutely liable to pay all the restitution for the damage you've caused.
Well, that's part of what the administration and the city council did to at least put back what we could of some reasonable standards after the legislature first acted. So Dearborn has a revised ordinance, and that's one of the elements. Let's talk about that. First of all, even though they're legal during those 3 days, where can you shoot them off and where can't you? Because that's an important element.
Very important. You can only shoot them off on private property, and if it's not your property, you have to have obtained the permission of the owner.
Written permission.
Right.
Okay.
So they are absolutely illegal to be launched or used on public property, school property, church property, any property that you don't own or control or have the written permission of the owner.
Okay, and that's a really important thing because a lot of people don't understand that, and they're going off to our parks and other places, and that's not permitted, and there's no superseding, and we weren't superseded by that. So that one is one that we say, yes, you can do it on your own property or property you have the legal right in writing to control because of liability, and let's talk about that. Another element in the Dearborn law is the fact that whatever you're using cannot leave that property you start with, right? So
that's correct, Mayor, and you were really instrumental in that facet of our local ordinance. That if there's litter, even litter caused by these fireworks on another person's property, you can be held responsible and charged criminally for that. Certainly, if you cause any damage, you're absolutely responsible for that too.
and that's even consistent with the state law.
Yes,
in that case.
state law provided that as well.
All right.
Only other thing you have to remember is you cannot be under the influence of alcohol
Oh.
or controlled substances when you ignite those fireworks.
And that is state law.
That is state law.
And we've mirrored that.
And
but it's
we've
state
mirrored
law.
that.
Chief, okay, now we get to the street and the real stuff, and you see it all. So why don't we talk about what's going on and what we're doing?
This is how it goes. With 10 holidays, you got 3 days around each holiday. That's literally 1 month out of the year that police have to divert their attention to fireworks, plus all the illegal fireworks that go on throughout summer, really. So we're going to step up our enforcement as much as humanly possible. Certainly, we're going to hold parental responsibility as a number one weapon, if you will, against this, because parents have to be accountable for their children. We had some enforcement this past weekend, and it's not something we want to do, but it's going to require a mandatory court appearance by the parent to explain to the judge why he or she allowed the children to do that. But I think what citizens have to understand are 2 things. Number one, it's absolutely a safety issue, both physical and property. We don't want anyone hurt. We don't want anybody's property damaged. Then comes, second, the quality of life for our citizens. We have an emerging senior population in our city, and they go to bed early, and when they're woke up by the boomers in the middle of the night, I ultimately hear from them in the morning. And I don't think it's an unfair proposition to say, live within the law, and if you're going to use fireworks, make sure they're not going on after midnight. We have a noise ordinance that we will enforce vigorously. It's at 10 o'clock each and every day. But we want to be good partners in this, and we want people to celebrate reasonably. But think of the neighbors, and if you have debris going on their lawns, we're also going to write littering tickets when we can prove who did it. But again, our number one mission is to fight crime in Dearborn, and I wish citizens would understand that they adversely impact our mission when we have to stop and deal with illegal fireworks. I'm not saying we won't do it, we will do it. But again, be good neighbors and try to live within the law and be responsible, I think, is the key here.
And how people can help out. And I had this last night. Last night I had an event, got home, was relaxing with my family, and all of a sudden some pretty pronounced booms. So I went out to try and see where it was, and I saw they were emanating from some public property that was a little ways down from me. And I thought, well, I'll call in 943-3030. That's the non-emergency line, because we don't want to take people away from 911. So I called in, and of course that's anonymous. So I'm now admitting that I'm one of the callers. But when I got a hold of dispatch, because it all goes to dispatch, they said, well, there's been a couple calls already. So as soon as we have a car available, we'll send someone out there. And that's something I want people to understand. The 943-3030 is where you call if it's not an absolute emergency, where we need to have a police officer turn on their sirens and come to that site like right now. And I know sometimes you feel like you'd like to, but we have to have bounds. And so that goes out when someone's not on an active run. And you talked about the fact that fireworks enforcement conflicts with all the other things that the police have to do to protect our public safety. So we really want people to be responsible. Again, if everybody would be careful and be responsible, we could mitigate that.
Here's one other thing, Mayor. I mean, I look at this like you could have the perfect location, you're perfectly sober, you're doing everything right. People should be aware too that they purchase their fireworks, if you're going to do that, from a licensed retailer, so that you make sure that they're the regulated type of fireworks, and you don't accidentally buy something that went beyond what was allowed by law. And one of the reasons they passed the legislation last year was to control the content of the fireworks too. And if you buy from somebody illegally, some of these bootleg fireworks are of display quality, and they're much more powerful than you anticipated. So retailers who sell these fireworks have to be licensed by the state of Michigan, and I would just encourage people to make sure they have to display their license too. Look for their license.
Well, thank you very much for being with us. We covered a lot of territory today, and I think people being well informed know we had a lot of calls. I remember there were a lot of calls that we had related to things going on, and we said, well, this is what we can and can't do. So this was a chance for you to get the whole picture, to understand how we're doing things. And again, want you to have a great 4th. Everybody should. Enjoy the family, enjoy your friends, enjoy summer in Michigan. It's too fleeting not to make the most of every moment. So enjoy yourself, enjoy being here, and we'll see you after the 4th, and I'll see you around town.